introducing, he first went to school and earned a BA in English. He has taught literature and seminars. He became an Army and Air Force exchange server. He also managed 7-Elevens. You may have seen him there. I guess he wanted to make some more money, so he went back to school. He became a litigation and transaction lawyer. It's Mark Holmes. He's been doing it for 21 years.
Mark Holmes.
Hi, how you doing? See, I'm going electronic too.
Nice.
Thank you for that fine introduction. Actually, my first store, if I can give you a little background, my first store was about the size of 7-Eleven. It was in a barracks. It was in an army barracks outside of Frankfurt, Germany. And they just dropped me off and said, okay, it's yours. See what you can do with this. And we had a lot of fun at that place because they had a bunch of guys who basically drove out in tanks for like 3 weeks at a time and would come back in. They'd be hungry and want to buy stuff, and we just gave them what they want. And they found that really refreshing, and we basically increased in the 6 months I was there sales by 27%. And that was because we were just listening to what they wanted. We gave them what they wanted. It was kind of fun for me. I went from there to the electronics business, and I managed, I recalled last night, the second largest electronics store in Europe, and then I did that for a year, and I was transferred, and I ended up managing the largest electronics store in Europe. And my claim to fame is that that one store in the mid-'80s actually made up 10% of all the profit of the entire European theater. That's how popular we were. We were really popular. So after I did that for a while, I became a troubleshooter. I went to other stores in Europe and basically tried to improve their operations. And the problem with that is the European director was bragging about me to the worldwide director, and so they transferred me to Dallas. And for a year before I went to law school, that's what I did. I rode around on a plane to various operations and basically told managers how they could improve their operations. And that was a lot of fun, had a lot of travel. And one of the best things that happened out of that whole experience was I met my wife. Because she picked me up. She was the personnel manager in Detroit, and she picked me up for a seminar I was supposed to do, and that was pretty much it. I got into her car and I never got out.
So who picked up who?
So she literally picked me up, right? But I think figuratively we picked each other up. It was kind of fun. No, it's one of those love at first sight type things. It was kind of cool. Just a little background. I have a Master's of Science in Business from Boston University. I have, it specializes in what they call quantitative analysis, which is mathematics, something you probably wouldn't expect from a lawyer. I also went to the University of Texas School of Law in Austin. Yay, hook 'em horns, right? Probably one of the most fun experiences you can possibly have, because for 3 years I got to hang out in Austin, and for about a year and a half I got to hang out in Austin with my wife. So that was really cool. I got a job out here in California as a lawyer. I passed the California bar, and I've been practicing for 21 years. I do corporate and business transactions and litigation. And that includes everything from employment, real estate, incorporations, LLCs, that sort of thing. One of the cool things about me that you should know is that, of course, I have my morning coffees. Right? I invite people for morning coffee, and that's free. And what do we do at morning coffee? We talk about you guys. We talk about people who come and have businesses, and they have issues, and they want to try to solve them. And what I do is I basically provide them options. That's probably the best thing a lawyer can do. We don't basically give you the solutions to life. We basically give you options. And I think the better the lawyer is, the more options the lawyer can offer. And that's really all I do, is I offer options. One of the nice things about me is I also am one of the only lawyers who will do a bunch of services for a client on a flat fee basis. What's a flat fee? It means I charge you only so much money and no more, no matter how much time, effort it takes. We just get her done. I find this is great for an initial contact with a client because there are no surprises. There's nothing worse than basically saying, yes, I'd like to incorporate my business, and then somebody says, yeah, I think the estimate is about between $2,500 and $5,000. Well, that's not very good, especially when you get the $5,000 bill and you go, well, why is it $5,000, right? And then they have this long explanation. I don't think for these types of services there should be a long explanation. I think it should be exactly one price, and then you should be able to do it, because if you don't do it at that price, that means you don't know what you're doing, right? So what's another advantage? Continual direct access to me and to your matter. How do I do that? I do almost everything by email. So for instance, if you're involved in a litigation, I constantly, whenever I'm talking to a third party, which could be opposing counsel or to another party, I always copy the client. So the client is basically following the litigation in real time. You get to know everything they're saying, and you get to know everything I'm saying, and what's going to happen, and why it's going to happen. And the cool part of that is that after I send my little spiel, whatever I'm sending to the third party, I usually follow up with an email and say, this is what's really going on, and this is why we're doing this, right? And so the client is sitting there going, oh, okay, now I know what's going on. I do this on a daily basis, and sometimes twice, 3 times, even 4 times a day if necessary. Why? Because it's very important to me that the client understand why I'm sending these bills at the end of the month with all of this money, right, that I'm requesting, right? I cannot understand how a client could be sending all this money to a lawyer and not understand for 30 days what is going on. And I know this to be true because a lot of lawyers will not send a status letter to their clients for months, yet they'll send their bills. I just don't understand that. So another thing that I try to do is I try to keep the expenses on matters low. This is very important. In litigation, it can be very expensive. And what I find unacceptable is that essentially if I'm using a vendor to do a massive copy job for you, right, I will send you the bill for the copy job, but I won't upcharge it. And this is something that's very common that lawyers do, is they upcharge you. They'll charge you not only the 10 cents a copy, but also the 10 cent per copy profit they would like to make on each copy. That's not acceptable. A lot of lawyers charge you for faxes. They'll charge you for sending letters. It's kind of weird. I try to avoid all that by just saying, look, it's all passed through. So as a result, when you do get my monthly bills, and I send out bills every month. I have my wife who's my office manager, and she's like a clock. Right? She will send them right out of the first. But the nice thing about it is after you get through all the fees that I charge for whatever I've done that month, which I've tried to keep you fully informed about, is that you look at the expense line at the bottom and you'll see that it's very short, right, and it's very clear. And that's also something very different about me. We try to keep expenses very low because we realize that we are a very expensive proposition and we don't want people to be basically charged unnecessarily. So what kind of clients would be good for me? Well, just about anybody who owns a business. I always preach about sole proprietors should be incorporated or should be in LLCs. That's a given. Another thing, anybody who's working with contracts, and that includes the trades, right? Bruce was talking about how you should read the contract carefully. Where do you think most of my litigation work comes from? It comes from people who sign contracts they don't understand. And if you're going to sign a contract of any importance, believe me, as a general service to the public, I implore you, email me, call me and say, Mark, I really don't understand what this is, or I don't understand what they're trying to get out of me. Can you explain to me what's going on here? And I'm happy to do so. Why? Because it will save you from some heartbreak later on. And by the way, this happens probably 5 or 6 times a year, right? 5 to 6 times a year with people who go to these seminars. How many people have ever gone to one of these seminars and they've given you something to sign? Never sign those. Ever, ever, ever. Okay? Call me up even if it's on a weekend at midnight and I will tell you, don't sign that. Why? Because you're going to get in a lot of trouble and I'll just play hell trying to get you out of it later. So basically that's a little bit about me and what I do. I invite all of you to come spend some time drinking some coffee with me. I guarantee you it won't be unpleasant. It'll be a pleasant experience. And we do serve good coffee or tea if you want that. Any questions or concerns, protests? None? Yes, sir, Lee.
If someone want to convert their LLC to an S corp, is that in your services as well?
Yeah, but it could probably be done online with a form. And that's another thing I do. When I offer people options, the first option is, could you just go online and do it yourself? If you can, then I'll just say, rock on. You don't need me, right? Right? But if it's complicated, where you have 27 shareholders and they all have guns drawn and they're standing at a table, then we might need to work that out with a lawyer. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.